Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't think it was that deep. I really didn't. It was supposed to be just a joke, something harmless to get everyone laughing before the night really kicked off. But now I can't stop replaying the moment in my head. Hey, I'm Alyssa, 28, and I guess you could say I'm learning a tough lesson about how quickly things can flip when you're not careful with your words. It all started at our friend Rachel's apartment. She was hosting one of those prep parties before we all headed out downtown. You know, music's a little too loud, drinks are already flowing, and everybody's just vibing in that perfect sweet spot before the night really starts. We were all gathered in the living room, half of us on the couch, the rest on the floor or leaning against the wall, like we're still in college. That's when he walked in, Gavin. I'm not gonna lie, Gavin's the kind of guy you notice because he's unnoticeable, if that makes sense. He's not bad-looking, but he's not exactly anyone's first pick either. Kinda lanky, thick glasses, hair that never quite decides if it wants to be curly or straight. He's the guy you remember as, oh yeah, him, after you see a group photo the next day. Now for context, Gavin's been in our friend group for a while, but he's always been the quiet one. Chill, nice enough, but not exactly the guy you'd call to hype up the party. And for whatever reason, that night, I was feeling extra bold. I think it was the tequila. Tequila always makes me feel funnier than I really am. So Gavin walks in, holding his little six-pack of off-brand hard seltzers, looking like he's just happy to be included. And I don't know why, but I saw my shot, and I took it. I was sitting on the couch, sandwiched between Rachel and my husband Ben. Everyone's already laughing about something completely unrelated, and I, being the self-proclaimed funny friend of the group, decide to add my little 2 cents. Wow, Gavin, I say loud enough for everyone to hear. I see you finally dressed up for once. Who you trying to impress, huh? It got a few chuckles, not a big laugh, but it was enough. And you know how it is, once you get that first little reaction you start chasing a bigger one. He smiled it off like, yeah, real funny, Alyssa. But I wasn't done. Don't play, Gavin, I said, pointing at him with my drink like I'm a comedian working the crowd. We've known you for, 3 years now? And not once have you ever shown up looking like anything other than someone's lost IT guy. Bigger laughs this time. Even Ben chuckled, and he's not one to laugh at everything. Now, here's where I should have stopped. If I was smart, if I was a good friend, I would have let it go right there. But nah, I had to double down. I leaned forward, squinting at him like I was examining him closely. I mean, for real, Gavin. Did you finally get a stylist, or did you just lose a bet? More laughs. Bigger this time. People covering their mouths, doing that, oh, she's wild kind of laugh. I felt like I was killing it. But when I glanced at Gavin, he wasn't smiling anymore. He just nodded a little, like he was mentally taking notes. His lips pressed together, tight, and he looked at me for a second longer than usual before looking away. And that's when he stood up. He set his six-pack on the counter and took off his jacket. I didn't think much of it at first, but then he started unbuttoning his dress shirt, all slow and steady like we were in a movie or something. The room got quiet real fast, like awkwardly quiet. I heard Rachel say, what's happening right now? He didn't answer, didn't say a single word, just kept unbuttoning. 1 button, 2 buttons, 3. People started glancing at each other like, yo, is he good? I looked at Ben and he had this face like, what did you do? At this point my heart started racing a little, but I played it cool. All right, Gavin, you win. We get it. You can put your clothes back on now. I tried to laugh it off like I was still in control of the moment, but I wasn't. Not anymore. Gavin didn't say a word. He pulled off his shirt completely and tossed it on the chair like it didn't even matter. And listen, I don't know what I thought was under there, but it was definitely not that. Gavin was ripped. Not gym bro ripped, but that lean, defined, natural kind of strong where every muscle looks carved in. Chest, arms, abs, it all looked like he walked out of a Marvel audition. Not a single person in that room expected it, including me. I felt my jaw actually drop a little. I couldn't stop staring. Neither could Rachel, or her boyfriend for that matter. Then Gavin, still calm, still not saying a single word, picks up one of his seltzers, cracks it open, and leans against the counter like nothing just happened. The silence was deafening. No music, no talking, just the soft fizz of his drink as he sipped it. Dang, Gavin, Rachel finally said, and she wasn't joking. Somebody whistled. I don't even know who. Okay, I said, waving my hand like it was no big deal, trying to recover my dignity. You been doing P90X or something? He glanced at me for half a second, just enough to let me know he heard me. Then he sipped his drink and said, calm as ever. Nah, just stayed quiet while y'all talked too much. Oof. I didn't even have a comeback. Nobody did. He ate with that line. Whole room went wild. The ohs, the he got yous, the clapping, all of it. And I just had to sit there on that couch, sipping my watered-down margarita, knowing full well I had played myself. He put his shirt back on, slow and steady just like he took it off, and I promise you, every button click sounded like a mic drop. I'll never forget what he said before he sat down. Don't ask for the smoke if you're not ready to choke. I had to laugh at that one. I mean, what else could I do? He won. I knew it. Everyone knew it. Rachel's boyfriend even gave him a fist bump, like they just witnessed a moment in history. The rest of the night, anytime I tried to tell a joke, somebody would say, "Careful, Alyssa, Davin's here." Like it was a warning. I'm not mad, though. Not really. If anything, I learned something that night. Sometimes, the quiet ones, they're not quiet because they don't have anything to say. They're quiet because they're just waiting for you to slip up. And I slipped. Hard. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Alright, so after Gavin basically turned the whole night into his personal highlight reel, I had to do what any self-respecting person would do in that situation. I laughed it off, pretended like it didn't bother me, and played it cool. But the truth? It bothered me. Not because I got roasted. I can handle that. I dish it out all the time, so I know I have to take it sometimes. But it was the way he did it, calm, calculated, and with zero hesitation. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't get flustered, he didn't try to win the moment. He just won. And that silence after? That was the loudest part. Anyway, we all eventually got back to normal. Music went back on, people started drinking again, and the awkward tension dissolved. Rachel even came up to me at one point and whispered, "Girl, he got you good." With that little mischievous grin, like she was happy it wasn't her. I laughed it off again, but my mind kept drifting back to Gavin. Here's the thing, and I'm just being honest here, I never really looked at him before. I mean, yeah, I knew Gavin. I knew what he looked like, but I never looked at him. Does that make sense? Like, he was just always Gavin from the group. But after that little stunt, I found myself sneaking glances at him all night. And let me tell you, now that I knew what was under that Target hoodie, I couldn't unsee it. I'd catch myself checking out his arms while he opened bottles, noticing how his shirt sleeves hugged his biceps just a little too perfectly. I know. I'm married. Relax. I wasn't interested like that. It's just that once you realize someone's not who you thought they were, your brain kinda gets stuck on it for a bit. Ben didn't seem to care. He was too busy trying to convince Rachel's boyfriend, Darius, that he could still dunk a basketball at 33. Spoiler alert, he cannot. But he was locked into that conversation, so he didn't even notice me being quiet for once. At one point, Gavin and I ended up in the kitchen at the same time. I was pouring another drink, and he was grabbing something from the fridge. We were maybe 3 feet apart, and I could feel that we both know what happened energy hanging in the air. I glanced over at him, and sure enough, he caught me looking. "You good, Alyssa?" he asked, all casual like he didn't just humble me in front of the entire friend group. Yeah, I said, swirling the ice in my cup. "You think you're real slick, huh?" He tilted his head like he was actually thinking about it. Then he shrugged. "Not really. Y'all just make it too easy sometimes." Oh, he was feeling himself now. And I can't even blame him. "You had that whole line ready to go, didn't you?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Don't ask for the smoke if you're not ready to choke? Come on, Gavin, you've been practicing that one in the mirror, huh?" He smiled. A real smile this time, not that quiet, polite one he always does. "Maybe," he said, cracking open another seltzer. "Or maybe I'm just tired of being the guy everyone thinks they can clown." Oof. He said it so smooth, but I felt that one deep. I didn't even have a comeback for it. All I could say was, fair. We stood there for a second, just sipping our drinks in silence. Not awkward silence, though. It was that rare kind of quiet where you both know something shifted, but neither of you feels like pointing it out. "Low-key proud of you, though," I admitted, glancing up at him. You definitely earned that one. He chuckled, taking another sip. Appreciate it. And just like that, it felt like we'd reached some kind of unspoken truce. But here's where things start getting weird. The rest of the night was normal, more or less. We hit up a couple bars, danced, drank too much, and eventually ended up at a 24-hour diner for greasy food at 2 a.m., like we always do. Gavin didn't do anything wild or out of character after that. No more big moments. Just the usual quiet Gavin, sitting in the booth with his head tilted back, staring at the ceiling like he was waiting for life to make sense. But for some reason, that night stuck with me. The next day, I woke up with a headache the size of Texas, and Ben was still knocked out next to me, snoring like his life depended on it. I rolled over, grabbed my phone, and did the usual scroll. Texts from Rachel, a bunch of blurry party pics, and a video of me laughing so hard I almost fell off the couch. Then I saw it. One of the videos Rachel sent was of Gavin taking his shirt off. It wasn't the whole thing, just the part where people started gasping and shouting, "Wait, what?" I watched it 3 times. Not because I was being weird, but because I was trying to understand why I felt so weird about it. It wasn't like I was attracted to him or anything. I love my husband, and Gavin's still Gavin. But seeing him in that new light, seeing how he controlled that whole room with silence, it made me realize something. I never saw him as a threat before. Not a threat like danger or anything. I mean it in that social hierarchy kind of way. He was the safe guy, the quiet guy, the guy you could poke fun at without worrying he'd clap back. But now, I couldn't unsee the fact that he could clap back. And that made me think twice about all the other quiet guys I've written off. It didn't stop there. At the next hangout, it was like everyone saw him differently. The guys suddenly started dapping him up, like he just got drafted into the NBA. Girls that never paid him attention were suddenly laughing a little too hard at his jokes. Even Rachel, who's been in a relationship with Darius for 4 years, did that "oh stop" shoulder push when Gavin said something funny. I'm telling you, it was wild to watch. And me? I kept my mouth shut. Not because I was embarrassed, okay, maybe a little, but because I knew if I said anything, he'd have a comeback ready. I wasn't about to give him another moment like that. Not again. But the craziest part? Gavin didn't milk it. He didn't act different. No cockiness, no attitude. He just stayed. Gavin. Cool, collected. Still sipping his little off-brand seltzers like nothing changed. But I knew it had. We all did. Even now, every time we hang out, I catch myself looking at him like, what else you got in there, huh? I wonder if he's been hiding more than just abs. But I'm not gonna ask, because I already know the answer. And I'm definitely not ready for the smoke. A couple weeks later, we're all at another pregame at Rachel's place. Same crew, same drinks, same vibes. But this time, I'm quieter than usual. Just sitting on the arm of the couch, scrolling my phone, half listening to the conversations around me. And that's when I hear it. Yo, Gavin, you still hitting the gym, or was that a one-time thing? It was Ben, my husband. He was joking, of course, but something about it didn't sit right with me. It wasn't the words, it was the tone. Playful, but just a little too sharp on the edges. The kind of tone guys use when they're testing something. I glanced over. Gavin was leaning back in the chair, one arm draped over the side, sipping his drink like he had all the time in the world, cool as ever. Nah, he said, not even looking up. It's a lifestyle now. Rachel and a couple of the girls laughed, and Darius gave him one of those slow, impressed nods like, respect, my guy. Ben chuckled too, but I saw his eyes flicker toward me, just for a second. I don't think anyone else noticed, but I did. I felt it. That little flicker. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about Gavin anymore. It was about Ben. See, before that night, before Gavin took his shirt off, before he flipped the script on me, he was just Gavin. He didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. He was a background character. Harmless. But now, he'd gone from being invisible to being seen. And people don't like when you suddenly see someone they didn't think was worth looking at, especially not men. It's funny. When I made that little joke about him being ugly, I was just doing what I'd always done. Taking shots, being playful, getting the easy laugh. But looking back, I realized that I wasn't just poking at Gavin. I was propping myself up, making sure I looked good in the moment. But that night, he flipped the whole board on me. I thought I was the main character. Turns out, I wasn't even close. And I can admit it now. That got to me. It got to Ben too, even if he'd never say it out loud. Because for the first time, Gavin wasn't just Gavin from the group. He wasn't the guy you could poke at for fun. He was the guy who could flip it right back on you without raising his voice. I'd like to say I learned something deep from it, like, don't underestimate people, or, quiet people aren't weak people. But honestly, the only thing I really learned is that sometimes you gotta keep your mouth shut, because when you ask for the smoke, you better be ready for it. And I wasn't. Not then. Not now. And definitely not with Gavin.